Well, thank you everyone for coming in today. We are again back to our guest series. I'm very, very pleased today to have with me two very inspiring investor founders in some sense. So this is Lyubov and David, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Go for it.
Hey guys, thanks for joining today. So I'm David. I'm one half of BlueLake. So it's myself, Lyubov, and Moritz, who is hiding just there at the back. I arrived to the UK when I was 14. As these things go, I attended an Orthodox Jewish school. I was studying in Aramaic, the full thing. Then I decided that I had enough and went to uni. Was studying at the University of Manchester. Then the whole boring thing, I was working for a big corporate in the city. And after 7 years of that, I decided that I wanted to do my own thing. So I quit and started, which was then Vimes, an SME-focused consultancy. This is how I met Lyubov, and what was it now? Gosh, about almost 6-7 years ago, or 5 years ago, sold the consultancy and started BlueLake, as I thought that, hey, enjoying working with all those SMEs, but the part which I'm having most fun is the tech companies. So decided to, put all the eggs in the one basket. I think that's the right way of doing it, and went all in and started BlueLake. Would you like to?
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Lyubov. As David said, I'm second half of BlueLake. I'm from Ukraine, Donetsk. This is where I started my career in corporate finance. My life significantly changed in 2014 due to first Russian invasion, where I had to leave my hometown overnight with a backpack to a safer place of the country. And this is how I met David, who just recently started the consultancy he mentioned. So I started helping David building business bridges between Ukraine and UK, and I ended up heading our Kyiv office. And 2 years ago, I received my global talent visa, moved to the UK, and David and I launched BlueLake.
Thank you for sharing. That's wonderful. So I want to jump straight into BlueLake. And so how about you tell us about what BlueLake does? What's the investment rationale? Because I know it has to do with immigrant founders. So I want to, hear from you exactly. What's your aim?
So BlueLake, we are investing in early stage, pre-seed, seed software, B2B startups in the UK, and our focus is on immigrant founders. Now, usually when I mention it, people jump to the conclusion that it's all about the social impact, which there is an element of it, but almost by definition, immigrant founders in the UK are a minority. But the reality is, we were thinking about what is the best value of that we can achieve with our investments, especially in such a highly competitive ecosystem as UK. So some funds, they choose verticals, right? Was it last year, the year before, it was all about crypto, Web3, right? Now it's about AI, and we are betting on people. So we are betting on self-selecting group of entrepreneurs, founders, whatever you want to call them, who come to the UK and would like to expand into one of the largest tech markets, at least in Europe. So that's the rationale. Because of our background, we narrow it down to B2B and software, and I'm sure this rationale will change as we learn and grow. Lyubov, would you like to? Do you think I missed anything?
No, one of the reasons why we invest in immigrants is because we believe they're the most hardworking people, focused on results. So why not? This is the type of entrepreneurs we want to see in our portfolio. So yeah, this is one of the reasons behind.
Great. Now, I want to ask you a little bit about the journey of BlueLake. So I think you guys also have an accelerator and maybe even started it as an accelerator. So can you tell us a little bit about that, the beginning and how you've transitioned perhaps to more of a fund? Go for it.
Yeah, so the journey of BlueLake is a collection of mistakes. That's the reality. So this was literally Lyubov and myself. We had a particularly unpleasant dealing with a certain government agency when we were running our previous consultancy, and it's like, okay, this is not fun anymore. So let's do startups. And that's how BlueLake started. But then we're like, okay, so how do you do startups? So we did the first thing, which is, okay, we got some money from the company which we sold. We're going to start investing it. And at that point, because we had close ties with Ukraine, we'll start investing it in Ukraine, but very quickly realized that, okay, you're going to run out of money soon, no matter how much cash you have in the box. It's not going to be enough for it to be a sustainable business, unless you have like billions. The next step was, okay, so we have all these cool startups. We can do things a bit more efficiently if we have an accelerator. Right? We're gonna put them all in one place. We're gonna work with them, and then our money will go much longer way. And then again, you know, we are suffering from the mistake that many entrepreneurs suffer, is hubris. You know, like we read it up. We know what we're doing. But we haven't realized that accelerators are really, really expensive to run, like really expensive, both in the time, in commitments, in money, in the type of resources that you need to have. And so we came to the next logical step that accelerator is fine, but we can't have it like YC or Techstars at that scale. So we have it as a much more limited part of our strategy, but we actually need just to invest money in good people, in good startups. And this has brought us to the conclusion, okay, we're pretty smart, but we're not smarter than the market, which has been formed by brilliant people. So we do have to have some sort of a fund or a VC vehicle, which brought us to the current iteration where we have an investment syndicate, which we are running, but it also we're hitting the limits of the syndicate. I'm not going to bore you with the details. There's basically time constraints with setting up each deal. So now we are moving into a more formal structure of a fund. Hello.
I think, yeah, you kind of skipped the first stage, pre-BlueLake stage. In parallel with our consultancy activity, almost as a hobby, just for fun, we started organizing Ukrainian UK startup roadshows. Yeah. So the idea was to organize an event ourselves and to bring 3-4 startups to London, so they were able to pitch in front of the audience. We were able to bring together like potential investors, clients, people from the ecosystem, and we organized about 8-10 events like this. Again, we were not paid for this. This was just a hobby, I would say. But for us, it also was a way to test our hypothesis. So this is how we saw that there are amazing startups who are coming from countries, for example, like Ukraine. But at the same time, there are a lot of gaps when it comes to understanding how the market works, how to fundraise, how to sell their product, lack of soft skills, how to present their companies, etc. So this is where we identified the first gaps on the market / opportunities.
Yeah, which led us then to the accelerator and to the, you're right, yeah. I missed the pre-accelerator part.
Fabulous. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I like you so much, which is that it's almost like looking at fundraising and investing from an entrepreneur's perspective, because you're like learning as you go and figuring out the process, which is so very different when you talk to more like established investors that have been running these funds for years and they already know what to do, what's the recipe, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so let me ask you something related to your journey and as investors. How do you actually source your deals? And to give you some context of why I'm asking this, so my guys, the people in this class, in a couple of weeks, they're going to be pitching their own business ideas in front of the class. So that's part of the exercise. But then they're going to switch roles and act as investors, trying to pick from all the pitches that they hear, which would be the ones they would invest in. So I want to hear from you, how do you think about a deal? How do you source potential deals? And once you've sourced them, how do you actually select those that you want to pursue? How do you go through that process?
Such a good question. It's very much work in progress. And we have additional constraints to your normal investors. So we think of ourselves a bit of like Indiana Jones of VC world. So we want to be there first. So for your more established VC company, the challenge is getting into a competitive deal, and the challenge is, quite frankly, is way easier now because, with the market being what it is. For us, if the deal is already well known, well, we're probably too late. So we want to be there before anyone else. So we have a number of instruments. One, and it's not a particularly kind of sophisticated one, is the network. So that's number one. You go to places. Like next 2 weeks' time, we're going to Warsaw. Lyubov was doing the Pirate Summit in Berlin. You just have to be out and about. What's frustrating about it is not scalable. There's only 2 of us, and to be honest, we tried venture partners where basically you hire someone just to go around and find startups, but it doesn't work. Not at least doesn't really work well for us. That's number one. We're still running as an accelerator in a more limited capacity, so that's another source of the deals. Partnerships with organizations. So we do partnerships with UK's government agencies, which are responsible for immigration in a limited format. So we're not representing here a UK government by no means. And office hours, I think that's our largest initiative, which we are running in the UK, connecting UK VCs with immigrant founders. I think we're going to maybe touch on this a bit later, so I'm not going to spend much time. Have I missed anything?
Yeah, one more thing. I think a third of our startups in our current portfolio were met by attending demo days, pitching sessions. So I think both of us have at least 1-2 events every week. So we are trying to go out of office and to find startups. Yeah, so it's not just about inbound interest. And this is how we met really amazing companies, just going there and
Yeah, the painful part for me that right now we haven't figured out the scalability. For me is the key word.
Yeah.
We haven't figured out the way in which you do A, B, and C, and as a result, you get a deal. So I just spent last month doing due diligence on 2 startups, and we haven't invested in them. So that's, I'm not going to say time wasted, but that's certainly not the outcome I wished for. And I spent quite a bit of time searching for these guys and speaking with these guys.
Absolutely. So we saw last week, you guys remember, we were looking at the survey of VCs, and they were asking them, like, what would be the average number of hours that you spent on due diligence on a successful deal? And that was like roughly 100 hours. And this is the successful ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of due diligence that is, quote unquote, potentially wasted from the perspective of the investor if the deal doesn't go through. Although there's a lot to be learned from the process from the perspective of the entrepreneur, right? I mean, by listening to all the questions that you ask, they may figure out, where are the gaps in, in the rationale of their company, et cetera. But I want to go back to one thing you said, Luba. So you said you go to pitch days and you try to search for these companies out there. So how do you find these pitch days? Where do you get an invite, or if you're a budding investor among my students, how do you figure these things out?
Yeah, well, now it's typically invite, but you have LinkedIn, you have Eventbrite. So I subscribed for sifted newsletters. So you're just monitoring what's happening out there. Yeah, you put the interesting events in your calendar to make sure that it will happen. And it takes time, and it's not it's not guaranteed that you go to the pitch event and you'll meet amazing startup. But you should try, I believe.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you spoke about 3 really good, lots of portfolio investments, but we've spoken briefly about 3 of them. So how about we go through them? And let me go to the first one. Go for it. Go for it. Yeah, just to the right. There you go. Tell us a little bit about this one. This one's connected.
Okay. That one was yours.
Yeah, so Connected was our very first syndicated deal.
Before you get there, what's a syndicated deal with these guys?
Good question. So as David mentioned, now we started making angel type investments, which is basically, you put small tickets into one company, which is great, but it's not scalable and you can't expect that much results out of this small ticket. So the next stage for us was to invest as a syndicate. So at some point we realized that, okay, we are too early to raise the fund because there is not much track record, etc. But we have people in our network who would like to put like 5, 10, 20, 50K ticket into the startup. So we bring them all together into some sort of club, group, whatever you call it, and now we are co-investing with them. So currently we have about 15 people in our group, and yeah, each of them can put the ticket. So the range is really big. So it's between 10K and 100K into a deal. So we are finding the deal, we are doing the selection process, we are doing due diligence. We prepare an investment memo, which is about 15-page, very detailed document, and we present this opportunity to our syndicate members, and yeah, they decide if they want to invest or not. So the first syndicate, that was also kind of the way for us to test, okay, what else we can do and what would be the next stage in our journey. And Connected actually came through the person whom I met at one of the tech events in London. So the guy who is leading his own company, he invested in them as one of the first angel investments. So he highly recommended us to have a look at them, which we did. And yeah, I think our syndicate loved them. And now they are one of the most successful companies in our portfolio, I would say. So they're doing very well. And they built the platform to connect early stage startups with angels and advisors. Yeah, which works well. They have a lot of users. They are growing. The numbers are great, which makes us very happy. So yeah.
So how are they making money, these guys? Who do they charge?
So it's, in a way, it's kind of very specialized HR platform. So if you're a startup and you're looking to get some people into your board or advisors, or like, you know, you're a real estate startup and you're looking to get somebody high-level real estate person as a part-time. So they connect these executive, non-executive directors who are looking for a part-time gig or just on pension board with the startups. So they're charging both startups and the directors, advisors. They charge them a subscription fee. I'm not sure if there's an ongoing fee. So that's the main thing. As well as that, because now they have a growing portfolio of startups on their platform, they're now offering them supporting fundraising services, deck reviews, et cetera, connecting them with investors as well, although I think that's secondary to their, which is essentially, like the founder would not like me to say that. I see this as like an HR type of thing, but it's not sexy, so I'm not gonna tell it to him to his face. Yeah, and they have a very strongly growing traction, revenues. Yeah, we love them.
Just to add to what Zayed mentioned, for us it was also a strategic investment because they have amazing access to early stage startups. So we realized, okay, at least it's a source of deal flow if things go wrong. But yeah, they're doing well, and it is an access to deal flow indeed, because they have a platform, but they're also very active in the ecosystem. So they're organizing startup investors events every week or so in London. And this is like high quality events, so we're really enjoying attending them, and we are finding interesting startups or even investors in our syndicate there. So yeah, it's win-win for everyone.
So one way to get into the events is invest in a company that does events.
Yeah, why not?
That's wonderful. That's a great story. And I'll come back to what I think was very interesting about them. So I've seen, not a lot, but some other startups are doing something similar, and AngelList would come to mind in the sense that they have like a platform where startups can meet potential angels. But one aspect about this that I thought was very novel, based on what I know, is the whole part of the board, right? Yeah. Trying to help you find advisors, mentors, but also people that will effectively sit on your board. But I'll come back to this, I think, in the third startup. So let's move on to the second one. Tell us about this one.
And this one is also yours.
Yeah, so Go Solo is basically it's like Revolut, but for SMEs, small, medium companies or individual entrepreneurs in the UK. What's interesting about this company, the founder, whose name is Dmitry, so you can guess he's also Ukrainian. When he just relocated to London, he reached out to us saying, hey guys, I saw you invest in immigrants, you are Ukrainian, so why don't you invest in my company? We had very good conversation with him, but it was too early, even for us. We do early stage investment, we invested in pre-revenue companies before, but it was super early. He just recently built some version of the product. He didn't have that many users. So we said, sorry, but no, not now. And then what I particularly liked about his approach, that he started sending us updates, just informal email, hey guys, this is what have been happening with Go Solo over the past months or so, which was good because for us that was very helpful to know what's happening, and for him it was a good way to stay visible because we are receiving hundreds, if not thousands, of emails, pitches. So the people who apply a proactive and human approach, they definitely stand out among others. And we ended up investing in him. Dima and other part of core team, they're based in London, but the whole R&D team is based in Ukraine. So definitely the war impacted them a lot, but they keep going. One of their investors who came after us are founders of Grammarly. I'm sure some of you know Grammarly. Yeah, we use them every day ourselves. So this is another Ukrainian unicorn. They're doing well because it's ups and downs, like pretty much for all of the startups. But I think that was the right decision to reconsider and invest in them.
Yeah, I think one thing which stood out to us. So Lyubov said SMEs, but his particular focus was on freelancers, which was in the post-COVID world. For us was okay. The freelancing has exploded and will continue exploding. So for us was really interesting that there's no shortage of neobanks, but this one is targeting a really exploding market segment. So for us was cool founder, great market segment, proven track record. Yeah, let's go for it.
But do they offer them a bank account, or do they help them set up a bank account with some other bank?
So they can even help with setting up a company, then a bank account, and then
they offer them a bank account.
Whole banking,
I see.
That's their own bank account, plus they do all the additional, so they wrap on additional services, company setup, accountancy, etc.
Right.
That you need as a freelancer.
Yeah.
Talking about successful Ukrainian companies, Revolut itself is like half Ukrainian, half Russian, no? That's like the story behind that company.
Yeah, we don't like to talk about that.
Okay, we don't like to talk about that.
Just kidding.
So let's go to the third example then.
This one, Lyubov found them, but then she passed it on to me. So Electric Miles, guys, they provide software for charging points, for home charging points for EV or vehicles. And the idea is for the software to optimize the charging cycles. And a longer-term ambitious goal is UK government is playing around with an idea, and it's probably going to get there, to start paying people for using electricity at certain times. And because UK has this actually kind of cutting-edge energy market, it's almost like a playground, and other countries are observing what's happening here. So these guys are saying, okay, we are going to be that software that goes between users, EV electric vehicles, and the electric grid, and we'll be the guys who optimize the usage for everyone involved. So that's, for us again, as an investor, the dream is to be a part of the growing market. And it's getting harder and harder, right? There aren't the internet is not being invented every day. The silicon chips are not being invented, telecoms are not being invented every day. So I'm not the type of guy who says everything is invented, but it does feel it's harder to find that, you don't get the phone calls and saying, there's this, crazy guy in Silicon Valley playing with a personal computer, and everyone's going to have one of them at homes. So this is one of those rare instances where like, oh, actually EVs are growing at well, not exponential, but a significantly higher adoption rate than the regular vehicles. The UK has statutes on the books which will phase out the internal combustion engines. So this market is happening, and these are the guys who are facilitating at least the charging optimization, and then the energy prices is an issue. So for us, it was really was mainly about the market and getting kind of our foot in the door.
Fabulous. And I know that you've been participating as an investment director. Is that right? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, not much, I'm afraid, because of the confidentiality. But this is one of the first companies where we are not just investors, we are also a part of the board. So it's, basically they have a board of directors and people who can influence the decisions. So you can say yes or no regarding like really strategic things or even small things, which is cool, but it's a lot of responsibility, and for us it's kind of a new experience. So every quarter we are participating in a board meeting with people who are typically smarter than us, and people who are asking questions. But we applied approach when we are active in the areas we are comfortable with. So in this particular case, we're helping them to fundraise because we have a network with early stage and later stage investors in the UK. So we know that when they need funding, we can definitely help them to get it, which we did in the current round. So we brought about 200K on board, I believe, in their investment round, which, they really appreciate. But that's kind of very interesting concept when, you invest money, but you don't just sit and wait, you are actively participating in what's happening in the company.
Yeah, you invest money and you get an extra job. And that's,
there
are three-hour board meetings, kind of, the novelty wears off quickly. And you're like, okay.
I mean, that's an interesting thing to emphasize, because in our class we've always said that, VCs are always requesting board seats, et cetera. And that is true when you're thinking about more mature investors. But when you think about seed investors, as you are, then this is not the regular characteristic of an investment. I see. And let's connect this with the first company. So I said that one of the things that I found very novel about Connected was that they were also helping these companies help startups figure out the configuration of their board. And so what is the difference, for example, between, let's say, an investment advisor and a non-executive director, which is one of the jobs that these guys, could help fill? What are the difference between the two? What do you think?
So non-executive director is a broad term. And under the non-executive umbrella, you can have an investment advisor, you can have a strategic advisor. So that's pretty much like anything and everything. Connected emphasizes, because what startups usually want. They want investment advice, and when they say investment advice, wink, wink, they just want you to invest in them. That's the kind of thing. So Connected are, with non-executive director, they're emphasizing the part where this is non-executive director, but guys, we know what you really want. Because as a startup, again, jumping ahead, we are running the office hours, and we get a lot of, as Juanita knows, we get a lot of data from the startups that are applying to this program. And fundraising and getting in front of the investors is number one issue. Connected rightly emphasizes that, hey, you're going to get a non-executive director that's going to help you with investments. But there can be other roles as well.
So we've spoken about how to get startups, which are the investments you would make, how to find them, how to select them, some examples. Let me now ask about the other thing that VCs have to do, which is basically find LPs. So let me ask you that part of the market, how do you actually find investors? You've spoken about syndicated deals, but hopefully at some point this will be like a fund. So how do you go about that?
Nobody's better at it than I am, so you go.
Yeah, so for us as a company, the next stage of our development, our journey, I would say is to raise a VC fund that would allow us to be scalable, basically. What the issue David addressed recently, because with angel investments or even with syndicate, there is little you can do, and yeah, it takes time, etc. And you're dealing with these amazing 15 people who are asking a lot of questions, etc., etc. So
let's go back to what you said about finding someone that shares your mission, your vision for the fund. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. So let me give you some stats. So the UN estimates there are roughly 8 million refugees from the Ukraine across Europe. Roughly half of them have sought some sort of temporary protection in Europe. When you think about the UK, it's roughly 160,000. Mm-hmm. And in a recent survey by the ONS, which is the Office for National Statistics, they basically found that 56% of the adults from Ukraine that have come here after the war are working, but only 65% of them are working in the same sector they used to work in the Ukraine. So there's really a lot of reinvention as you come to the UK, because you just have to find something that now fits you. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because obviously one thing you could do, well, maybe not obviously, but one potential idea is to become an entrepreneur, right? So, and I know that your vision is about immigrant entrepreneurs. And so I want us to talk about office hours, which, David has mentioned a couple of times. So let's jump right through it. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so for us, the question is, so we see these amazing people and we see them in large numbers. But typically, our answer is going to be no. Even more typically, we're not going to even answer, because we get an application. We try to respond to most emails, but many just slip through. And when you see something that's not suitable, it's regretful. That's just the game. And we're thinking, okay, what can we do to be a bit more helpful? B, to improve our deal flow, and C, to learn more about our audience. And the answer for us was to create International Founders Open Office Hours. We're still working on a more manageable name, work in progress, which was an idea where on one hand, we have this collection of immigrant founders that are already here or on their way here. On the other hand, we have tons of VCs in this country who are looking to support minority startups, who are immigrants themselves. And what if we could connect these two groups in a manageable and painless fashion? And this is how International Founders Open Office Hours were born. So we told, hey, dear startups, if you apply via this program, unless you are completely nuts or you are like a fake startup, or I can talk about that, we are almost guaranteeing you one-to-one meeting with a UK-based VC. And for VCs, we're saying we're going to do the matching, and we'll make sure that if you participate in this program and donate some of your time, few time slots, 2, 3, 4 half-an-hour time slots, we'll make sure that you'll speak to someone who is a great startup, minority founder, and someone who is, more importantly for VCs, from your sector, segment, investment stage, etc., etc. So this is how the program was born, and this is where we worked with Juanita and Robin, and we approached them and asked them to help us with figuring out, well, the part where we learn more about startups. So we ask startups a lot of questions. That's essentially the payment for participation. It's free, of course, but we ask them, tell us a little bit more about yourself, so we can get a better understanding the type of challenges that you're facing, your background, what you're really interested in. And we're getting really fascinating insights into the kind of things that immigrants they can bring to this country, the kind of sectors they're participating in, and the kind of challenges they're facing.
So I know that version 1 already occurred. So when was this? When was version 1? How many people participated? Yeah, tell me a little bit more.
Version 1 was launched in May last year and finished in August. So during these 3.5 months, we will accept applications from startups, and we will, as David said, we were doing matching between founders and investors. I don't remember exact numbers, but we received about 200 applications from startups in total. And so Juanita and Robin did a bit of research, and we noticed that the startups applied from more than 20 countries, so it was really a diverse group of founders, and we scheduled about 120 meetings between founders and investors. And on the investor side, we had about 27 people participating.
This is, yeah.
And these investors, who are they? Like, how did you meet them? Are they part of your syndicate, or are they part of like your bigger network?
Both. So some of them we already knew. So yeah, just one email, one phone call. Hey, would you like to participate and to meet amazing founders? Yes. Some people reached out to us asking to be a part of it, and because we were doing this for the first time, and this is quite a unique initiative, so that there were no initiatives like this before. So we decided to strategically get on board quite big names from the industry, and this is where we spent quite a bit of time trying to not even convince them, but to explain what it's all about and why they need to participate. So yeah, it took us time to bring first big names on board. It was much easier with the second program. Most of the VCs who participated in the first program, they are doing this again. Quite a lot of other people also joined us. So yeah, I think there is no shortage of investors in the program now, which is a good sign.
And version number 2 is happening as we speak, basically. So when are the meetings taking place? I think in the coming weeks?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Any questions? Not today. Yeah.
When's the next event you do with BlueLake? You do something every month?
We do?
Any event?
For BlueLake.
Yeah.
So what is the next event you may be hosting? I think this is what you were asking. Yeah.
We're running events for our community. They're usually themed. So yeah, we're running events for our investors, startups. If you we're just figuring out when the next one is going to be.
Yeah.
I'm afraid it's invite only, but if you ping me on LinkedIn. But yeah, we're probably not the biggest and most active organizer of events in the UK. I would recommend following like Sifted. This type of guys,
Or even the guys at Connected.
Oh, Connected,
Connected,
yeah. They're doing, yeah.
Okay, so to kind of like end this on.
I think we will have time to Q&A later.
Yeah. This is why I was asking whether anyone had questions. Go ahead. I didn't see your hand, Julie. Go for it.
Thank you so much. I'm curious if you're happy to share if there's been any kind of general takeaways from what immigrant founders specifically need. So it sounds like obviously in trying entrepreneur networks, especially if you're newer to a region, maybe don't have access to particular investors, but are there any other kind of specific findings around how you can be helpful to those entrepreneurs that you've discovered?
So there are two stories here in parallel. One scientific, which I'll leave to Juanita and people who are more qualified. What I mean is, we get a lot of response, but for me it's hard to split which is just startups facing startup problems and thinking that they're unique because they're immigrants, and which are unique. But going just by the data on the face value, network is by far the number one. So the startups are saying, well, we're coming to the UK, we're lacking the network. The second one is biases. So people actually say like, well, we have a funny accent and investors don't want to talk to us. I would say that these are by far the two top themes that keep appearing and reappearing.
Go for it.
I'm just curious, I'm a philosophy student and I'm getting to grips with a lot of
sorry, the question how to break into this as
As like, non-tech, not incredibly financially versed individual.
I think the good news is I think we are beyond this because the sector is so diverse, and you have from fashion to food to to techies. You have all sorts of people doing wonderful startups, and this means on the investor side you need to have all sorts of people assessing those startups. So, I mean, being a top graduate from MIT probably would help. I'm not going to lie, but I think these days it's much easier to break in. I would say the best way is to start building your knowledge base, and if you have any particular sector that you find that you are leaning to, started digging in it. Again, it doesn't have to be tech. From shipbuilding to fashion, there is a VC that specializes just in that. And the dirty secret is on the VC side, people are always desperate for high quality talent. So on the jobs board, which I'm seeing, internal Slack channels, people are screaming we just need somebody with a good head. And so just start following one sector, build up your expertise, and start cataloging the type of the VCs in that segment, and reach out to them directly. It's actually much easier than it used to be.
Absolutely. You had a question too, yes.
Yes, I was wondering, you launched your own VC fund, and I was wondering what was the most important difficulties and the takeaways that you took from that journey?
I'm thinking where to start from, because we face different challenges. I would say one of them is it's pretty much the same challenge that our startups are facing. So we had 2 immigrants in the UK trying to build something, and we both came from what can be called non-typical background when it comes to the VC space. Getting back to previous question, so we see our own challenges and sometimes biased approach. So these things exist. It's not cool to talk about it. So no one really touching this point publicly, but we have our own challenges sometimes. Another thing that I don't know if it's a challenge, but we don't have all the answers. Because before launching BlueLake, we haven't worked for VC space so we started building everything from scratch, and we learn as we do. So this is why we made quite a lot of mistakes, and we keep making them, and we keep learning. That's another thing. What else? Well,
there are tons. I mean, the VC model. So if I go into more specific, the boring parts, the VC model is all about hugely deferred revenues. So let's say take you for example. If you're gonna get 5 million to start a fund tomorrow, it may sound exciting, but you're not gonna be getting any revenue to your day-to-day stuff. So there's also a question as a VC of a small fund. Okay, how do you generate operational cash to run this thing? And there are answers, of course, but that makes things infinitely more complicated than just sitting down and figuring out the right financial model for the investments. You also have to figure out the right operational model to actually do the type of things you want to do. Again, this is something that's not being talked about a lot. But once you start running your fund, you'll face it.
It's particularly interesting to listen to because I'm a Ukrainian migrant myself, and previously mentioned that a lot of migrants, they apply, but you have to see, because either their project is not developed enough or their business is raw. So, for example, if I want to apply, what are the key indicators that I'm ready to apply? Maybe you can talk in general terms, or how to avoid the trap of not being ready.
Yeah, if we can so I really let me go on a little rant on a segue, but I'll come back to it. So I really hate the VC culture where, like, oh, these are the top 10 things where startups are doing wrong. There is this arrogance about, the high and mighty VCs are coming down to the poor founders and going to teach them how to live their lives, which I think is just, it's being promoted by the social media culture. You get the clicks, you get the likes, and it works for many people. For us, we see when we reject a startup, it's because it's not a match. It's not because, it's very rarely where a startup is wrong, is stupid, is crap. It's because, like, well, we have a very specific theme. And so with us, or with pretty much any other VC, is just to make sure that you are aligned with what VC is looking for. So if it's a hypothetical fund that is looking for you for early stage, but then a small print is going to be like, well, we're looking for revenue generating startups with like 100K MRR. For some, it's still very early stage, and you don't have it, it's going to be a rejection. So we have the same thing, and we're quite open on social, on LinkedIn for us first and foremost. And we say, okay, this is the type of things that we do. This is the types of, like, for example, we don't do hardware. We don't do medical science. And yet we have tons of startups applying to us with hardware and medical science. And yeah, it's going to be a no-brainer. So just have a look at what we are after, and it's our job. So we get paid when we invest. Again, every VC gets paid when they invest. So it's for us, we are biased towards saying yes, almost. So it's not a question right or wrong, it's a question of kind of matching.
Match, yeah.
So thank you very much, guys. I need to stop it right here. Thank you for coming, and join me in thanking them. Thank you.